Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Happy Friday. So, while I do a lot of the work that Arthur described, one of the major driver for, and the bigger picture that is the umbrella that provides a cohesive story and brings all the dots together is my passion for the future of work. So I do a lot of consulting in that space. I work with organizations to think about their workforce strategies and how they can tap into analytics and how they can look at different disruptions that are shaping what the organization of the future would look like and need to prepare for today. So the way I describe these trends is in terms of two major frameworks, and the disruptions are 4Ds. So this will be an easy way for you now to look at different news and say, this is where it aligns to. So D1 is demographic shifts, which tremendously impacts the availability of talent and the location of that talent and the composition of the workforce. So if you think about aging population, we have a significant amount of, especially in major mature markets, significantly larger proportion of aging workforce and fewer entrants, younger generations in the workforce. So this will limit the availability of talent in the long term because the pyramid of the population is no longer the pyramid, it's starting to become as a tower. So people live longer, fewer children are being born to women over the lifetime. So in the long term, if we want to preserve the same economy and ability to produce, we'll have to adjust. So in a way, technology may help with some of that. At the same time, companies will continue to struggle to find qualified talent. Second is digitization. So this is all the technology that is coming to workplace fast and furious. Robotics, artificial intelligence, immersive reality, mixed reality, all of these will become more and more commonplace. And yes, some of them are still in labs, some of them are becoming tested, autonomous vehicle driving, all of the things are at different evolution, but they will become commonplace sooner than later, and probably sooner than we think. Just think about iPhones and what they've done to our lives in 10 years since they were produced. So it's accelerating. The third D is datafication. So the amount of data and digital footprint we leave behind as we use these technologies, as we move around the world, as we interact with each other with the enablement of technology, leaves a huge amount of footprint about who we are, what we prefer, who we interact with, and enables companies to make decisions very differently. Sometimes it gets very invasive, and that's why you see pushback, especially from European perspective, in terms of the data privacy and the ability of companies to really overreach into our personal lives. But it will be a continuous push and pull. And a lot of companies, it's their business model. They use your data as a product to make money. So it will continue to be something they will not be willing to give up. But at the same time, it's an opportunity for us to participate, because if we're not leaving that digital footprint, we may be left behind. We may not find out about different opportunities. We may not be able to be active in this economy. And then the last D is disintermediation, and that's where the gig economy really plays a huge role. You have a lot of industries that are no longer neatly organized. Just think about Amazon as an example. Is there an industry they have not really gotten into? They started with the business of selling books, and then they moved into retail of other things beyond books. Then they moved into content production, media. They are working on putting a rocket to Mars. They are, producing content and a couple of Oscars to sprinkle with. Just the sheer invasion and adjacent industries, and it's a very typical model. You have a lot of technology-first companies that are moving into adjacent spaces to disrupt. So the organizations have to really think what the landscape looks like and who they're even competing with. And from a personal perspective, there's a lot more individuals who are choosing to go independent. Of course, some of them, the beginning may start not by choice, but a lot of times, once they go independent, very few of them want to go back just because they're more empowered, they have flexibility, they have control over their schedule, etc. So these shifts are going to continue to impact what the workplace of the future would look like and how organizations need to start thinking differently about the 4 Ws. And that's what the workforce composition looks like and how you define that. And workforce is not just regular employees, contingent workers, but it's also freelancers, communities, chatbots, and other artificial intelligence because they get the work done. So thinking holistically about the workforce helps. The second W is workplace. So traditionally we think workplace is a physical environment, no longer the case. My workplace is in my bag, it's charging right now. So it's more about interaction between physical and digital that will create a definition, a holistic definition of the workplace. Third W is the work itself. How do you define what work is? Is this work? Probably for some are, because we're going to write some ideas. It's ideation, it's co-creation.
Right.
How do you measure the output? How do you define ROI? So there are a lot of things from organizational construct perspective that are necessary. And then the last one is the worth. The value system is shifting. What matters to people is changing. People are more purposeful. Even younger generation want to do on something that is more meaningful. So I think that we're at an exciting point in history. And I hope this is an exciting future for all of us.
Okay, thank you, Stella. Okay, yes, ma'am?
So one of the shifts that's really come about in the last few decades is a shift in the way we look at income. Income used to be something that we thought of as stable, right? What's happened to that stability? It's vanished for the most part. For one whole generation, the traditionalist generation, they used to see work as something that you start in and you finish in all in one fell swoop. And at the end of that life cycle, what did you get? The gold watch, right? The plaque on the wall. And most importantly, a pension plan. Yes, exactly. The idea of a social safety net, whether that's from Social Security, which started right at the same time as the pension plan, and the pension plan, the defined benefit plan, really kind of impacted an entire generation. And the baby boomers, who came right after the traditionalists, were impacted in a way that they're only starting to feel now. Because it was right around the 90s, 80s and 90s, that those pension plans started to go away. Why? Because people are living longer, as Dan mentioned earlier. And so there has become this, what I would call a hidden in plain sight crisis in our country for people over the age of 50 who used to rely on that income stability, at least mentally, who are now looking at their lives and saying, well, wait, the world is shifting all around me. Data, digital, the whole nine, right? The gig is here. What am I to do financially? Now, certainly, there are people in every spectrum of life, in every kind of financial position, and there actually are some people who either do have a pension plan, were grandfathered in, maybe they work for the government, education, could have worked grandfathered in from a Fortune 500 company, or may just have, had a wonderful retirement plan. However, for millions of people over the age of 50, this is not the reality. And this is actually why I was inspired, truly, I had a divine epiphany at the end of 2013 to start Boomerworks. I'm a Generation Xer, and at the time, it was only the boomers who were really impacted by this, but of course Gen X is getting older, we all are. And what I realized is that this hidden in plain sight crisis is for individuals who have no longer been able to get back into the W-2 traditional, stable, which again isn't so stable anymore, economy. For a variety of reasons. Age discrimination absolutely is in existence. We have this trend toward outsourcing. A lot of folks over the age of 50 are competing with the two younger generations behind them. Confluence of events. And what's reality is well, how do I make ends meet? And so Boomerworks and others alongside us who are in very similar worlds are really helping to perpetuate what I like to call necessity entrepreneurs. So folks who need to get into, whether you call it the gig economy, the freelance economy, small business entrepreneurship, lots of ways to distinguish this phenomenon. And actually to take a lesson from our younger brethren and sisters, the millennials, who actually have been living, many of them, on what they call the side hustle, right? Who have been delaying, have needed to delay what some might call traditional adulthood, getting married and having children and owning a home and all of this, even if they would want to, which a lot of them don't, because a lot of them want that sort of transience. But they, just to make ends meet, they often, if they even have a job, a traditional job, they'll often have 2 or even 3 gigs on the side, just to make it, right? Especially in a town like this, but really, or just about anywhere. Of course, it's a very, we have a very high income. And so when you look at all of this together, you say, well, what do we do with this, right? Do we kind of cry in our soup? Do we say, woe is me? Or do we say, no, this is the time to repurpose our W-2 skills into this flexible workforce? To say, look, especially for people over the age of 50 who have been working for more than a long minute, right? Who hopefully have developed some sort of talents and skills. What can we do collectively to help this whole generation that keeps growing to say, shift their mindset from a W-2 traditional stability and say, look, this is something that's going away. We can't help it. It just is what it be, as it were, right? And also shift skill sets, to repurpose those skill sets to say, what can we do to harness the power of the flexible workforce? To say, let's capitalize on this. Let's say, look, there absolutely is an emotional piece of this, and I was talking to your colleague earlier here, Leslie, to say, you know what, there's a real issue with this, a death of identity for so many people who were used to being in that traditional, right, the hierarchical level, and all of a sudden they're outplaced, all of a sudden they're downsized, all of a sudden, right, this has all gone away, and the business card evaporates. Who am I? Or most people are saying, who am I now without my title? Right? Well, you're more than the sum of your resume. That's what I would have to say, right? You all are gifted. Every one of us in this room is gifted, and everybody outside these walls is gifted to serve the world. Maybe in a little bit of a creative way, a little bit of a different way, but we all have that ability to repurpose, to do something that's a little bit maybe even more creative, and sometimes even, not only do it by necessity, but even by desire. Because how many people were stuck in, that's the other side of it, stuck in a W-2 job that they had no desire to be in. Right? I'm a career coach. It's one of my lanes, if you will. I'm also a recruiter. And I have people coming to me all the time. Oh, Shira, I've been doing XYZ job profession for 20, 30 years. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, right? Because they were so disengaged in their work because, why? The employer was saying, oh, you're good at this, therefore you must continue to do it. And the person's saying, just because I'm good at it doesn't mean I'm passionate. I actually have my passions in this other part of my life, whether it's my hobbies or other kinds of professional skills. And a lot of employers, for understandable reasons, kind of constrain, right? A lot of employees they pigeonhole them into this one area. But actually, this flexible workforce gives us this beautiful opportunity to say, wait a second, I don't have to be doing this other thing. I can reinvent myself over and over and over again. And I feel like this is just a wonderful time and place for us to say, what is possible?
In 6 minutes?
5 to 6.
You're trying to get me to do in 5 to 6 minutes a workshop that I do in days. But anyway, good morning. I am really excited about being here because this is one of my favorite topics, and I am going to do a very, very high level flyover, a workshop that I do, and you intellectuals in the room will love the title of this workshop. It is called The Good, the Bad, and the Very Ugly of the Gig Economy. The good. Everybody knows the good. Flexibility. We have time to do what we want to do, when we want to do it, how we want to do it. That's all a really good thing. The good, people who are 45, that's my age group. People who are 45 and older now have the opportunity to say, you know what, I hated that job. For 30 years, I hated it. Now I'm going to take who I am, repurpose it, and earn some income with it also. That's all good. The good is that people in other countries that we used to call developing countries, their whole economy is shifting. We have people who used to make $3 a day or now charging $3 and $4 an hour. And even if they don't work 40 hours, they are rich in their country. So we don't have enough of it yet, but what we see coming is that is gonna shift the actual economies of the developing world. That is fabulous. Would you all agree?
Yes.
Now, the opposite side of that coin leads us to the bad. The global marketplace. That's my time. So for the global marketplace, for US workers, it's a little bit bad. Because what it means is that for those of us who are in a professional arena, which is everybody in this room, things that we charge today, $50, $60, $150 an hour, there are people in this developing world who are equal to us, or maybe even brighter, no, they're not charging 5 because they've become smart. They are charging 30 and 40 for the same work that we do in this room. So what does it mean for us? The book that I wrote, Do the Hustle Without the Hassle, is about the online gig economy, which I think is the best kept secret. People know little bits and pieces of it, but really it is where we're going. It gives corporations the opportunity to say, hey, I need a certain skill. I can get it right away, very quickly. I don't even need a staff to do it. I don't need the whole recruiting system to do it. I can have one person with one app or several apps, and they can work with that app developer, and they can staff their whole talents. You know, they can source everything they need with the click of a button. Now, so for us, it's a little bit bad that we're competing with people and they're charging less than us. And that's the reason why a lot of people say, I don't wanna get into this whole digital thing, Angela. And I'm saying, you're gonna miss out. Because from my vantage point, from all of the research that I've done, that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed. Another thing that's pretty bad, and it's something that you guys see in the newspaper every day, there's this tension between the app developers and the workers, contractors, whatever you want to call these people. But there is a tension. Now, it reminds you of pre-industrial revolution times, right? So at that point, everybody could look at a production cycle. And they can say, I know at the beginning of this production cycle, and I know what happens at the end. And I am responsible for all of it. It took us back there, because what happened with the Industrial Revolution, I have a whole workshop on this. But what happened with it is that we really sort of sold our souls to the corporation. They became our mom or dad. They provided everything for us. They even had a store where you don't have to go any place to shop. That's coming back. My little niece was telling me about all of the benefits that she has in her corporation to keep her on campus. So it takes us back to that point where you need to know, from soup to nuts, this is what I do. I produce a final product. Or I get together with some of my colleagues and we all have various skills, and together we produce a product that we can sell in the marketplace. Okay, let me get to the ugly. There are some very ugly things going on. And it's not really, to me, the fight between the apps and the contractors. That's not as ugly as it can get. This is the ugly thing. Why is it that this gig economy thing is not totally new? This has been going on for a while, but it's really starting to heat up. But why is it that we cannot get accurate statistics from our government? To me, that's very, very ugly. Because the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they have always said there's farm workers, non-farm workers, and businesses. And even when they did their supplement and they started to look at, the contingency workforce, it was so convoluted that they came up with like 2 to 4% of people in 2005 and 2017. I think they went up to 11%, but it didn't even take into consideration people who were off app. It didn't take into consideration full-time freelance folks. It didn't take into consideration of this huge thing that we call the gig economy. That's very ugly to me. It's very ugly to me that if you become an employee and you decide you want to try your hand at something, and you open up your business and you're getting your little gigs here and there, but you're not making enough money so that you can survive, that your unemployment is in jeopardy. Now, there is a program called the SEA program, which is the Self-Employment Assistance Program through the Department of Labor. Nobody knows about it. It's here in New York. So you can explore self-employment and still get your unemployment benefits. But it's only, the last time I checked, and this was a few months ago, so I might be wrong, but the last time I checked, there was only 5 states in the whole country who used this. That's very ugly. Because if you can't get a job, and most people who are 50 plus, it's gonna take you, on average, 6 to 8 months to get a job. Who can survive off unemployment insurance? You've gotta hustle, you've gotta figure out a way to make some more money. So it's very ugly that we don't have a system in place so that you will be rewarded for now getting off the rolls because you are preparing for long-term opportunities. So that's very ugly. The last thing I gotta say, I know I'm out of time, but this is important. This is the very, very, very ugly thing of the whole thing, is that people like you and I don't know our worth. We don't know our worth. And I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you.
So I want to thank Dan for having me here. Unlike many of the people that I've met in our panel, I'm not a critical thinker. But I live the gig economy. I was in the television industry for close to 4 years. And the television industry has been a gig economy forever. It is not your average 9-to-5 job. You work in between every production that you do. You hope to have the next production come up as a producer director. I can speak louder.
They're recording it, so.
Okay. You live in between every job that you do. So for 40 years or so, I lived the gig economy. And the gig economy is lovely and it's wonderful when it's good. But when it's bad, it's really, really bad. Because a lot of what many people here have said, pensions, that doesn't exist. And that's a whole other topic because the 401k is what's killed a lot of people's retirements. Because the businesses have now given you the opportunity to save for your own retirement rather than helping you with pensions. But that's a whole other topic. As business changed, as I got older, as I like to say, the workforce got younger, I didn't get older. More and more and more, the spaces between each job got bigger and bigger. Your rabbis leave. The people that you had hoped would give you work, they leave. Slowly but surely, you're now chasing, and you're chasing. And this is what's going to happen to the millennials. I lived it. And then you get to the end of the road, which is not truly the end of the road. You look back and you are holding on for dear life. And this is what will happen to people in this gig economy as well. Because unless they really prepare themselves and understand the challenges that they're going to face, moving from job to job, or career to career, the same exact thing is going to happen to them as happened to probably a lot of people in this room. And certainly a lot of people that I know in the television industry. And we used to say, there'll always be work, there'll always be money, until we found out that there will not always be work, and there will not always be money. And a lot of people did not prepare themselves. We grew up, my father worked for a company for 100 years, everybody's parents did that. I chose to go into a profession where I was a serial entrepreneur. The television industry is kind of being like a serial entrepreneur. It's a lovely thing, and you control your own destiny. But I fear for my children and my grandchildren that slowly but surely, as this takes effect, all of these problems, all of these issues that the gig economy will actually bring to the world will start to create problems. I was a content producer. I was a content producer before they defined what a content producer is. And now everybody's a content producer. But the reality is that content hasn't changed. Distribution has changed. The distribution channels have changed. The technology has changed. So as technology changes and as distribution changes, then the need for this many people becomes this many people, becomes this many people, and ultimately it turns into a very small amount of people. So I fear that this economy, if left unchecked, and if all we do is say, well, this is the economy, this is the new gig economy, I've lived it, I've seen it, I spent 40 years in the gig economy, and it's not always pretty. There's a lot of people who've walked out, who've planned properly, I planned fairly well, but there's a lot of people out there who did not. And it happens, it's a slow creep. It really is a very slow creep because, like I said, if the people that you rely on to give you work disappear, it's like starting from scratch. So I think that that's a big portion of what needs to be discussed about that's part of the economy. The second topic I want to talk about is transitional, which is I recognized, and maybe too late, or maybe not, that I needed to make a change. That this economy, this whirlwind that I was living was not good anymore. It just was never going to change, it was never going to get better. And I had to make a decision about what I was going to do. And I had started consulting with some businesses, and I said, well, this might be an interesting thing to do. But I spent 6 months, I'd say the first 6 months I spent totally denying that I would ever do it. I'm creative, that's what I do, I'm creative. This is it. And I'd go and I'd learn and I'd move and I'd make a decision, no, I'm going to get a job. This is absolutely going to happen, I'm going to get a job. And then I'd move and go, no, there a freelance job will come up, it'll all happen. The sooner that we all embrace changing, embrace the change, step back and take a look at what it is that we do, well, the faster that change will happen, the better off that we all will be. So, okay, that's my story.
All right. How many of us were taking copious notes during those presentations? Here's the good news. Woodrow Wilson once said, I not only use all the brains that I have, but all that I can borrow. So the institutional knowledge that was gleaned from that conversation was pretty amazing. And I think it's important for us, and I think some of the themes that I heard was flexibility, adaptability, and brandability, and making sure you stay relevant regardless of generation. And you gotta be hungry. If you have a passion for what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. These are obviously 4 passionate folks. Let's open it up for some Q&A. Yes, sir, in the back.
Yeah, this is more of a statement than a question, but as I listen to the panelists, my impressions are, first of all, the idea that one should go with one's passions, I think is one of the greatest fallacies that exist. You need to go with your strengths. You know, let's pretend that I really, really love golf, which I don't. You know, that would be my passion. I'm going to make a living as a golfer. Well, no, I'm not, because I suck at it. Well, what skills do I have? I have social media marketing skills, that I have metrics that I can point to. And so if there's a market for that set of skills, you know, presumably I'll make a living from that. That's one observation. The gig economy, as it exists now, it's a race to the bottom. So while we have to deal with that reality and try and function and succeed within that reality, it's ultimately it's going to end badly. And maybe we'll all we'll all function in it before it's time for us to finally move on. And that leads me to the discussion I'm sure will be raised later today is universal basic income. It has to be part of our national and international discussion,
Right.
Because with the centralization of earning in platforms, we need to circulate money in the economy at the grassroots level, and that's only going to happen if that money is redistributed.
Hopefully we can tackle that query in a public policy panel discussion.
Right.
I think it's well suited for that.
And part of that, again, will be distributed ledger technology, blockchain,
Right.
and its variants, which will flip the monetization of our attention.
Right.
So, anyway, those are my observations.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Any comments? Yes.
Yeah, I want to respond to a couple things you said, which I think are really very important. That whole thing of race to the bottom. I don't buy that, and I'll tell you why. It's in the media all the time. But the reason I don't buy it is not that, I don't believe that the gig economy can't work. I totally understand what you're saying. I've been in the gig economy for years too, for decades. I owned a consulting firm for 20 years. Nobody called me a gigger, but that's what I was. But this is the deal. You said those who plan very, very well. The problem is that people don't know what they're responsible for when they're in it. So if you get in it and think, I'm just gonna work, wow, I got a check for $4,000 per day. No, you don't have a check for $4,000 because you are a business owner. You have responsibilities, you have taxes, you have to buy your own benefits. So when you come up with your pricing model, it needs to take all of that into account. Most people who jump in don't have that education, and that's one of the things that I do, help people understand. This is not just jump in, get a job, and spend the money. You are a business owner. So I don't believe it's a race to the bottom. I think it's the race of the smartest. The people who are very smart, who get in it, they will succeed. I mean, I've got lots of friends myself. You can succeed to the point where you can actually be wealthy. But you have to know how to do it just like you have to know everything else. And the other thing I want to say about passion, I agree with you. There has to be some reality to our passion. But one of the exercises that I do with people is taking a 360 view of your passion, your knowledge, your skills, all of that stuff, and seeing how you can apply it a different way. So you love golf, you don't, but you that example, but you're not gonna be a golfer, okay? But you could potentially be a commentator, you could potentially teach children, you could potentially find a better ball. I don't know anything about golf, but you know, you can find a better ball or whatever it is, and you could sell golf products. You can do so much with a passion, but again, the problem is that our population has not been educated on the wide array of possibilities for any one thing we have interest or skill set in. So don't give up on the passion, but just look all around it to see if there is an opportunity to monetize it. I know people who make money off all kind of weird things.
Sure, go ahead.
Just
Sure.
one more, and actually Angela and I are both gonna be on the next panel where we're gonna be talking about shifting your mindset and your skill set, and I'm not gonna give it away right now, other than to say, I have a specific exercise. Angela has an exercise, I have an exercise too, I call it passiontivity. It's where passion and productivity meet, and it's a 4-quadrant exercise that anybody can do, gig or not gig, to actually identify where do your passions and your strengths align.
Right.
That's where actually the music happens, okay, so I just wanna see that.
Okay, Stella, Ernie, did you have anything you want to say about the comment, and then we'll get to some more questions?
Just quickly, the Ikigai concept actually is at the intersection of 4 things. 1, things that you're passionate about. 2, things that the world expects and needs. 3, the things that companies are gonna pay for, and the 4th one is the one that you're good at. So it has to be at the middle of that, yeah.
Exactly. Yes, you've been very patient, yes.
Oh, okay, well, several things. One is, I think nothing is ever here to stay. Because we're in a world of flux, we're in a world of change, and we have to know that. There was recently a great article in the Wall Street Journal on Gen Z entering the marketplace now. And they said, think the Depression era was the great generation with technology. They are looking for stability, they are looking for money, they are looking for jobs. So they're not going to be part of it. The trend with them does not seem to be continuing with the gig economy. So that was just, I think the gig economy is extremely important for booming. And I think whoever was talking before, we probably will outlive that it will be relevant.
Thank you for sharing that, I appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi, Jack Kupferman from Great Panthers.
Sure.
One of the things that I'm noting here is that the enthusiasm and the high level of competence, the panel has been very fascinating, and the people here are quite talented. However, the gig economy applies not only to this small cohort of people. There are tens of millions of people over the age of 50 who do not have the same skill sets, who are still in this desire to get project-based work for compensation, and it just ain't gonna happen. So that has to be part of this larger discussion. It isn't about the privilege of which we all are. It's about others who are not as privileged as we are, and how, I don't know that there's an easy way to address that, but it is essential for the progress of humanity.
Okay. Any comments on that?
That's a great point.
Sure, Ernie, you had something?
No, it's a great point that, there is going to be a lot of people left out, and because of it.
All right, yes, ma'am.
Hi, as you, I've been a gigger my whole professional life, so I never had that terminology. But my experience then as now is that without even recognizing what I was doing, one of the ways to survive and thrive in an economy like this is to reach out, to network, to form virtual organizations where you can hand off work both to the skilled and to the less skilled, who have administrative skills and technical skills and things that people who perhaps are more professional in their orientation don't possess or don't want to spend their time with. And so reaching out and creating that network, and perhaps formally figuring out a way to create that network, which is alive and vibrant and